very obviously a political move by the United States to counter that growing power. Obviously, the entire world can see that the U.S. is declining as a U.S. empire, declining as an empire, and China is rising as a global power. So the United States, this is that has part of a very long history of diplomatic maneuvers and statements that they've been putting out for 20 some odd years, trying to counter Chinese power. Obviously, them diplomatically opposing the actual Olympics doesn't really mean anything. And as I said, there is no actual uh, invitation sent to any U.S. politicians, diplomats, etc. So it's merely a symbolic gesture. This is just more of the U.S. trying to reaffirm this allegation that there was some kind of genocide against Uyghur Muslims inside of China. This has been going on for several years now, backed mainly by Adrian Zenz, the person who runs the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, which bizarrely considers every person who has died of COVID to have died of Chinese communism for some reason. Essentially, they have not been able to show any evidence whatsoever of any alleged genocide going on. If there was a genocide going on, and according to them, millions of people have disappeared, then there would be a significant population drop, considering the small population of the area, etc. And I could go into all kinds of other information that would completely debunk this argument. But this does come at a time when the United States is trying to attack China on human rights grounds, as it's building many connections throughout Southeast
Jason,
Asia and Africa.
let's use our 1 or 2 minutes left to debunk that argument, because it keeps going on about the Chinese Muslims allegedly being abused in China's Xinjiang province, where, as you said, there are many. The reality on the ground is not the case, and what is it with the United States and its obsession with Muslims in China? Why not Muslims in other places? For example, Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, in Nigeria, in Palestine, in you name it.
Well, because they're the only politically useful ones. The United States, obviously, I'd be surprised if the United States cared about human life in any way, shape, or form, let alone it actually being Muslim life. The United States is the biggest murderer of Muslims across the world. Just simply the wars of Iraq, Afghanistan, and their long-standing involvement in both Syria and Yemen. So any kind of idea that the United States cares about Muslim lives is simply laughable. This is nothing more than political opportunism. They're having this outrage toward Muslims when they're the biggest murderers of Muslims across the entire world. It would be funny if this weren't such a serious situation. Now, it's very clear that the U.S. is just using this to bash China. There's no evidence of their accusations whatsoever, and they have had years and years to come up with something. All they have is vague testimony by anonymous individuals that don't say anything. I mean, it's so completely ridiculous. Anybody living there would already know that it was true if they noticed their neighbors disappearing in the middle of the night. It's simply facetious that they're saying all of it, but the public, for the most part, will believe it because other people bad. The United States has a very long history of demonizing every country it is that they don't get along with. Look at how much they've ignored the human rights crimes of Saudi Arabia, and they barely make a peep out of those. But somehow this baseless accusation seems to be something they want to harp on for years, with no intellectual or academic integrity whatsoever.
Yeah, and Jason, the irony is, of course, that China has its military in Africa under the United Nations mission to keep the peace there, whereas U.S. Military adventurism always goes without any under any UN resolution. Jason, I'm afraid we have run out of time. Jason Unruhe, their political commentator, joining us live out of Ontario.